Horror is a genre that draws more people than most. It's the one genre that will always make you feel some sort of emotion, whether or not you're engaged with the story or if you engage with the themes of the piece you're watching, reading, or playing. At the basic level, even if you aren't paying attention, jump scares can keep the audience engaged. That's why there are so many jump scare fest movies with no substance being made, as it's guaranteed to draw some sort of audience. Games use jump scares just as much as movies, like the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, which didn't innovate on its general design until its fourth entry. But horror can always shine its finest when it plays well into the form of media that it finds itself in. The works of H.P. Lovecraft fit well within the medium of books, using the inherent vagueness of words on paper and adding some grammatical flair to give the thread of each work a sense of otherworldliness and godlyhood that man could never achieve. Movies like The Shining play well into the strengths of film. Tiny inconsistencies of the background of shots disappear in your mind, the floor planing of the rooms making impossible spaces within the hotel, the furniture and props changing with no explanation. The characters act irrationally and disconnected, despite all living in the same place together.
You're distracting me, and it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
Jack's hallucinations of the hotel make us question his sanity, and this reality. The small hints of abuse make us question if this is even new.
I did hurt him once, okay? It was an accident. Completely unintentional.
The plot is straightforward, but there's just enough of inexplicable happenings to let you know that these three characters aren't the only ones at the hotel. The lack of explanation leaves plenty of room for your imagination to terrify yourself. And games are where horror can truly shine the greatest. Games, as a medium, are defined by control. The story only moves when you take that first step or button press. Where writing and movies can terrify through detail, or a lack of it, games can scare through a lack of control. Even with its age, the first Resident Evil is a prime example of this. You have no say over how often you save, where you go, where you look. You can barely hold any items, and you lack a key items inventory. Zombies are hard to kill, even when using an entire magazine. Unless for some strange reason they aren't.
What?
You can kill a zombie completely dead and be sure of that, only to come back a few hours later and now they're back again, only faster and deadlier. Traps corner you and have no escape. The direction you're giving in the opening isn't what you're supposed to do.
Okay then, I'll try the door on the other side.
This mansion is gigantic. We could easily get lost. Let's start from the first floor.
And that control that you've come to expect is never given to you. A big weakness of Resident Evil and horror games as an art is the act of dying and respawning. It is either A, a complete removal of tension, now knowing that no real harm can come to you, no matter how large, powerful, or scary your foes are, or B, only seeks to annoy the player by sending them back to a save so far away from where they died and forcing them to repeat both the actions and the scares along the way back to where they were. Having something so inherently damaging to the genre is easily the largest downside of this new medium, but thankfully, some developers have been up to the task. Hellblade has more of a narrative solution. While not being a typical horror game, it has a mechanic called the Dark Rot. If you die enough times, it reaches Senua's head and completely erases your save. It allows that tension, even after a respawn, to continue to exist, as the threat is never gone. The secret to the Dark Rot is that it's not real, it's another creation from Senua's psychosis. Using a similar mechanic can help influence a true sense of danger, even if your progress is interrupted. And having the threat also be hollow is a good way to make sure that players that aren't too skilled with video games in general aren't needlessly punished. Using it too often, however, can remove the emotional effect from finding out that it's not a true mechanic. And if you try using something that actually deletes your save, you risk losing players that don't want to retread through hours of scares and enemies they've already seen. On the other hand, games like DDLC or We Were Here use their genre crossovers, visual novel and puzzle respectively, to change their fail state from a death to a failure to continue, and use different aspects of their design to instill that feeling of dread. We Were Here especially gets around this through possible deaths later on, only introduced after the players get far enough into the game to be able to understand what the game wants from them. This is really less of a widespread usable solution. It's more of saying we have to cross our fingers and hope game developers are creative enough to come up with the workaround. While hope for a solution may seem slim, one game comes up with the solution to every single one of these problems. A game that solves every problem that horror games have inherent to their design. One Leaves finds an interesting way around these options by making its own. One Leaves isn't a game with combat, it's not a visual novel, and it's only barely a puzzle game. It's actually more of a racing game, an interesting crossing of genres, making this the first horror game that has the potential to have full USB steering wheel support, a true win for accessibility. The synchronization with the Xbox Kinect is quite impressive as well, being one of the best out of any single game including the option.
Oh, hey, give me ammo.
Give partner ammo.
Sweet.
I love this.
I found this small indie title on the side of a road. It looked like a car had ran it over. But it did say, the case said it had a Kinect function.
Psst. Hey kid, you can't see me, but I'm gonna try to give you a hand with this.
Gets me every
Look
time.
around.
Walk forward. Walk forward. Walk forward. Walk forward. Oh, there it goes. Wait. Oh, there must be a bit of a delay. Sorry. You know, it's just a little dusty. Walk forward. Walk forward. Walk forward. One Leaves is easily one of the best coop horror survival games out there. Its entire story is made up of a race between you and 3 people through an increasingly bone-chilling maze, made up of horrors of the human body and the most terrible reality we have all had to go through: high school. The mazes are masterfully designed, a lot like Dark Souls, not only in their refined difficulty, but also in their dark, depressing, and oppressive atmospheres. They have suffocating smoke, slowing you down in your death race, infected lungs, psych wards, and the Iron One. You face small and simple puzzles along the way, unlocking elevators on your way down and deeper into this madness. You activate 2 switches to leave a dark high school, through a library and an infinitely repeating hallway, then going through a morgue, climbing through 4 latches to find another switch. The last stretch in the New York sewer systems turns into a full-on race, a final sprint to the finish line. At the end of it all, you get informed of your sad fate and what your fight has gotten you. It's quite a short story, and there isn't much detail between your steps, but the brevity of this scenario helps keep the story open and replayable, and invites analysis. One Leaves is also open with its messaging, the pieces on the way being more of another brick in the chain-smoking wall rather than a piece of a hidden puzzle. Despite the message being so unusual compared to its contemporaries, it's unbelievably human. It toes the message of the struggle against addiction, the worst of all. What might that be, you ask? The constant fight between an enjoyable high and a difficult sobriety, the fight against one's inhibitions to give into superficiality and consumerism and the toxic expectations of such, buying Funko Pops and Lazy Lion NFTs? No, it's the Puff Puff Drag, the Camels, the Newports, specifically of the teen usage variety. You know, those cartons that they sell to teenagers. The fight against teenage smoking has been a constant struggle over the years. It's a vice that many give into that can forever change the future of one's life. Even with all of the previous failed efforts to stop the spread, one organization has dedicated themselves to trying to stop teenage smoking once and for all. The real cost, funded by the FDA, is dedicated to stopping teens from smoking. They don't do it by trying to remove the high levels of stress that teens having to deal with. What with helping balance good grades, a social life, a dead-end job, money, worrying about their future careers that they will undoubtedly hate and not be able to change unless they want to be homeless, keeping a good and consistent credit score, housing, college tuition, a relationship, taxes, comically bad mental health, and probably terrible parents, all while trying to find time to do the things you love and hating yourself when you can't? No. Instead, the real cost spends their time much more valuably, like advertising to teenagers on cable television. And, more importantly to this video, an obscure horror video game that's free on Xbox Game Pass. What an absolute deal for $1. The real cost is an unbelievably brave corporation, taking such a huge risk in a game like this. It's a 1 in a million shot to change the world, and in my opinion, they've hit it right on the bullseye. Horror is a very special genre. All the different types of media that try to convey a message can really hide the message too well behind impressive visuals, extensive vocabulary, and an oversimplification of the conflict. Horror is special in that meaning is inherent. Losing is a real possibility in this universe, and with most horror, the threat is never removed by the end, only held back or escaped just for now, just like the struggles we deal with in real life. Horror is also a much smaller scale compared to other genres. A Mountain Lodge getaway is much more relatable than crashing into an alien planet with a set of power armor fighting a war with aliens against a religious cult that wants to end the universe. We aren't all superhuman. We all won't achieve something world-changing with our lives. We won't have some cinematic battle against evil people, or end up being known by more than our locals. The battles we fight are ones we are bound to lose at some point, and some we can't even win in life or death. Horror is a genre where our struggles, our real struggles, our hate, our search for meaning, our effort to better ourselves, even with all that drags us down, are portrayed. This is what makes One Leave so great. While other pieces of horror use small settings to convey larger meaning, this is the exact opposite. A cursed school, a burning hospital, and a series of infected tunnels convey a meaning that most of us are likely to deal with in our lives. The pieces along the way reinforce how hard the break from addiction is. The doors in the morgue represent the lockboxes where we keep our deeply loved and sacred objects. The narrator calls you slow in the opening.
Kid, if you want to make it out, you're going to need to go a whole lot faster. I'd like to see you beat this.
Similar to somebody with several mental disabilities, like me. The tiles on the wall in the multiple rooms represent the small, metaphorical cells that people who smoke force themselves into. Listen man, I'm making a YouTube video game essay. Can you please stop coughing? You're kind of interrupting the vibe. The closed classrooms are meant to be an even larger version of that, applying specifically to the teenagers that this game focuses on. The lights next to the iron lung that hang on the wall represent how some people think they'll quit, but eventually they all fall back into the same addictive cycle. The red wires on the floor represent the hardiness and valor of our great nation state. The secret spiral of smoke in the back of the library is clearly meant to be the smoke that, not many people may know, comes from cigarettes and vapes. Small little known fact I had to learn from hours of reading on Wikipedia just to understand. Whether or not it was all intentional, the image Oath Incorporated makes with these pieces is more terrifying than any other piece of horror I have ever experienced. When you walk into the final room, you get some cold, hard facts handed to you. 3 out of every 4 teens that think they'll stop smoking won't. Sorry, I had to put an ellipses in the script. I just copy and pasted from their website and they had that in there. I don't know, that's some deep stuff to think about right there. I can't believe that teenagers will sometimes make unrealistic promises or not really know what they're dealing with. Who would have known? It's an unbelievable fact to wrap your brain around, even with all of the effects of smoking. The tar, the nicotine patches, the iron lung. They still do it. It's almost as if, as the days go by, hope is getting a lot harder to find as things continually get worse and worse, as just trying to live comfortably is requiring an even greater amount of money when working a minimum wage job, working for people that don't respect you, and trying to care about larger political issues while every single other person that you talk to seems to really only care about gas prices. It's surprising to find out that some people will try to take an easy way out to deal with that stress. There is an added piece to this masterpiece of a puzzle. If you manage to try hard enough, fight the puzzles, and speed through the game, like a true speedrunner, you can manage to be part of the 25% that make it to the end. You can continue on, live the life that ends with peace. You may think that having this be an outcome, that it might make the point of the game fall a little flat. Well, yeah, it does.
Sorry, kid. One of your friends got out first.
Ah, damn it, I didn't make it through the speedrun properly.
You'll be spending the
Well,
rest.
looks like I have to keep smoking. Played this to get 1000 gamer score for some... Gamer score, god damn it. Played this game to get 1000 gamer score for some insane reason. Made me start smoking a pack a day to deal with the stress. My kid saw me playing and asked if she could play too. I told her it's not a game for kids, but she started playing it on her own Xbox, and now she's a chain smoker too, and her little brother is in the iron lung machine. That's unrelated to tobacco. He's never smoked. He just has polio. Anyway, One Leaves isn't a game I'd recommend. Gonna head out for a cigarette now. Wow, when Microsoft touted the initiative's prowess and quadruple A pedigree, I didn't think they'd aimed this high. Delicious. For me, it's the McChicken, the best fast food sandwich. Made me puke up last week's pork loin and perform an exorcism on my kid's guinea pig. Perfect game. Imagine your mother serving you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You obviously want to eat this amazing sandwich. As you take your first bite, your mind goes numb. Instead of peanut butter and jelly, it's filled with toothpaste and hydrochloric acid. This is honestly a perfect summary of this game. It looks great with lots of potential, but on the inside it's just a terrible chemical reaction, and people telling horror stories of their uncles. Merry Christmas. The day was December 25th, 1996. I walked downstairs because I heard a noise at 4 a.m. I immediately thought it was Santa. I was wrong. It was my father with a belt. He whooped my butt so hard that I picked up smoking as a 5-year-old. This game strengthened my love for cigarettes and reminded me of the true meaning of Christmas. Smoking is fun. This game is a work of art. The amount of time and effort they put into the complex story and various gameplay elements is amazing. However, this game's greatest feat is that it made me understand the true value of why smoking is a beautiful thing. Time to get some Marlboros. Whew, I'm gonna need a smoke after that one.